All right. Hello, everyone. I'll give it a couple of minutes for folks to join, and then we will get started very soon. All right. I see some folks trickling in. If you were not able to join us last week, this is actually part 2 of a 2-part series on WIA leading the way. Last week, Rehgan talked about becoming an AI power user. And this week, we're talking about the CDO Masterclass that's offered by WIA, which is just a really amazing opportunity to connect with some very, very really experienced experts in this space. And it's definitely not something to miss if a CDO is potentially in your career path. All right, we have a good amount of folks in now, so I will cover some housekeeping items and then I'll kick it over to Rehgan. So this is the second webinar in our WIA Leading the Way series, Becoming a Chief Data Officer, presented by Women in Analytics. We have a wonderful speaker here today, Rehgan Bleile, who many of you may be familiar with as the founder of Women in Analytics, as well as the co-founder and CEO of AlignAI. So our agenda today, I'm doing a couple of quick housekeeping items, and then I will turn it over to Rehgan for her presentation. At the end, we'll have some time for closing remarks. If there's any questions that you've dropped throughout the conversation, we will hopefully have time to cover them then. So like I said, this is Becoming a Chief Data Officer. Our newly launched AI Bootcamp and CDO Masterclass are available for folks now. If you're interested in joining, you can submit an application. Rehgan will talk about that a little bit later. But really what you're going to learn about today is more about what this course offers, the benefits, how WIA is working to provide really a wonderful experience just to upskill and get more understanding of what you can do to succeed in a chief data officer role. So learning the skills, understanding the technical landscape, and becoming or getting one-on-one time with real CDOs who are in the industry. So a little bit about Women in Analytics. Our mission is to increase visibility to women and non-binary individuals who are making an impact in the analytics, data, machine learning, AI space, and providing a platform to allow those individuals to be the ones leading the conversation. You can stay involved with the community by following that QR code to visit our website, womenanalytics.com. You can visit the WIA community where you can become a member absolutely for free. Stay up to date with our events calendar. We have a wonderful mentorship program, and our community platform is a great place to connect with your fellow data and analytics enthusiasts. So a little bit of tips for the webinar itself. If you look at the bottom of the screen, you should see a Q&A box. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, as soon as you think of them, please drop them in the box so Rehgan can get to them at the end. If you're having any issues with audio with the webinar itself, send us an email, info@womenanalytics.com. And if you're not already connected and you're interested in staying up to date with all things WIA and Data Connect, make sure you follow us on social media, sign up for our newsletter, or join the community platform where you can connect with folks all the time on a lot of fun topics. All right, and so with that, I am going to turn it over to Rehgan. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks, Lauren. So if you were with me or with us, I think last week or the week before, I don't even remember at this point, I did a session at an airport, at the San Francisco airport on my phone, and was actually able to share my screen. I didn't even know I could do that on Zoom on my phone, and showed some of the things that we do with ChatGPT and Claude, what we cover in that AI bootcamp. I know Lauren had posted the link to register for that. We are at the waitlist point for both of these, which is really exciting. So if you are interested in either of these educational opportunities, make sure you join the wait list as soon as possible. If you go to our website at womeninanalytics.com, you'll see events, and click that. You'll see both of those there. Lauren will probably be able to drop a link in here before the end of the webinar. So if you are interested, you can head over there. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CDO Masterclass and what inspired this. So if many of you don't know Salima Rice, she is just an incredible friend, but B, also one of the most impressive people I have ever met in this space. She delivered an excellent talk. If you're a paid member of ours, go to the membership platform and you get access to all the conference talks and videos and recordings at your fingertips. She does an excellent session on being a CDO and her journey to becoming a CDO. She was the kind of a first CDO at several different organizations, big enterprise organizations. She's been doing this kind of work for 20, 25 years. I'm going to talk a little bit about her background and bio, but her and I were chatting, and we thought that there was an incredible opportunity to provide some resources and some baseline foundations for individuals who want to or aspire to become chief data officers within organizations. And you may know this or you may not, just depending on where you're at in your career. But for a lot of organizations, they also kind of bundle AI in a lot of cases with data. So any AI initiatives that they're doing, they may have a separate chief AI officer, but a lot of organizations have like analytics, AI, data science, data kind of under a singular umbrella, mainly because they're also tied together. And the role of a CDO is actually, I think, one of the hardest roles that exists out there. There's so much pressure to deliver value, yet you are dependent on so many different areas of the organization. And you kind of sit in the middle between the rest of the organization who's delivering directly tied to delivering value. So it could be customer success or sales and marketing, right? There's some operational function that they own. And then you sit here as a CDO, wherever you roll up to, by the way, which is very different in different organizations. Could be a CIO, could be just directly to the CEO, could be under a chief marketing officer. It just depends. But you kind of sit in this org as a centralized function that serves the organization. And so your job is essentially to say, how do we build the building blocks and capabilities inside of our organization so that stakeholders who are directly associated with value can do their jobs better? And it takes an immense amount of emotional, so that EQ, kind of emotional intelligence, but it also takes a lot of technical depth. And so it's this weird blend of skill sets that is actually quite hard to find in individuals. And so if you're thinking about going into a CDO role, it's really important that you understand what the role is made up of, what it's comprised of, and is that something you really want to pursue? And there's a lot of people out there, by the way, today who do a lot of the functions of a CDO that don't necessarily have the title. And so in our last cohort, we actually had several individuals who had a lot of the responsibilities of being a CDO, or they were kind of close to that, or they were on track to that. And maybe they were on the technical side and they were trying to learn how some of the other core components of being, a leader and a CDO within their organization, or they were handling a lot of that, but they didn't have as much autonomy as they wanted. This is a little bit of a blend between a leadership class, right? Because this is a leadership role, and also learning all the ins and outs of what a CDO really does. And the role can be drastically different at different companies. And so her and I were chatting. We were saying, the rise of the CDO happened about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe. And there's now a lot more communities and support out there and resources out there than there used to be. For example, I'll give a quick shout out to CDO Magazine, which actually has a massive community of chief data officers out there. They have great resources, tons of articles and interviews of different leaders that you can go check out. but it is fairly comprehensive and a really challenging role because normally you don't have as much autonomy as you want. So you have all these goals and objectives and you have to show much value, but you don't have, you know, the autonomy to be able to act in some cases. So it's a lot of brokering of relationships and also a lot of strategic thinking about how to take some of these technical capabilities and enable them organizational wide, which is a lot of change. So Salima always talks about the different types of roles that she has served as a CDO, including, you know, the lawmaker, the bailiff, right? Like different types of flavors of a CDO function. You know, are you close to a risk team or a compliance team? Are you close to the value of the business somewhere? Are you close to IT? You know, where are you close to and who do you report up to? Those are all key elements of success for a CDO. The stat used to be that the tenure of an average CDO was under 2 years at a company. It is one of the hardest jobs out there. It is also very rewarding if you do it well and you're successful. I always say it's probably one of the most interesting, comprehensive roles at a company because you have oversight on all the intelligence layers of the organization. And in order to do that, you have to truly understand how your company functions and works. And then underneath that, you've got all the data. And you may not own all the data, but you at least know where it is and have access to it and understand how it's structured together because you're helping to deliver that data back to the rest of the organization. So you may control certain initiatives like, you know, data cataloging and making data more accessible across the organization. You may work closely with security teams to ensure access controls are correctly implemented across the organization. I just think it's such a powerful role if you do it well. So if none of you are, or any of you aren't connected to Salima Rice, you should definitely go connect with her right now on LinkedIn. She is fantastic, an excellent resource. She currently mentors about 75 different chief data officers across different organizations. So she's seen and heard it all, and she's helped these leaders navigate through some of their challenges. And so I'm going to show you a little bit of what's in the curriculum, but I just wanted to kind of prime up why we decided to launch this particular masterclass. So I'll talk about what we cover and how we cover it in the format. And then I'll also talk a little bit about the process of getting accepted into the masterclass as well. And again, if you have questions, please throw it in the chat. Happy to answer questions along the way. So give me 1 second, I'll share my screen. So we've got the masterclass with Salima Rice. This is the overview of the curriculum. So we've got 4 core topics that we cover. Topic 1 is an overview of the technical map and landscape, which again, do you need to be technical in order to actually be successful as a CDO? I think that's kind of questionable. There are a lot of folks that have come from technical backgrounds that have not, or that have been very successful, and a lot of people who have not, that have been very successful. So it really, I mean, it really depends. I've seen both. There are challenges to both of them. If you don't come from a technical background, the nuances might be hard to articulate or comprehend or understand potentially. And just as a quick, I think one question came in from folks. This is how you spell Salima Rice if you want to connect with her. So Salema and then Rice. So yeah, the technical landscape. Do you need to be technical to be a CDO? The answer is maybe. It just really depends. So if you're rolling up to a chief information officer, or you're within the IT organization, or you're going for a position that's within IT, they may expect you to have more of a technical background. I think the biggest, most important part is to understand how all the puzzle pieces fit together. So things like, what is a catalog? You know, what is master data management? What are some of these concepts that are core to an enterprise data landscape, right? And so just understanding the different tooling categories, what exists, how they fit together, what tools exist out there today So under those categories, which ones are most commonly used? Like a very commonly used one under enterprise catalogs is Elation, but there's a bunch of new emerging catalogs as well, like SelectStar and Sakota and a few others. So, there's a kind of like what's established, what do people have, and then what's emerging and new, and then keeping up with new technical trends as well, like a data mesh. What is a data mesh? How do we support something like a data mesh inside of our organization? I'd say if you don't come from a technical background, you are interested in this, don't get discouraged. Just make sure that when you're actually going through your hiring plan, that you surround yourself with people who you are confident have a certain level of competence around those technical areas that you trust, that can support some of the more detailed types of decisions. You do need to have a very thorough literacy around the technical ecosystem. So just become familiar with what things are at a high level. So like I said, high level technical skills is great. An overview of what a data product is, we cover that as well. Some of the trends in technologies being used in the enterprise today, for example, being very familiar with cloud and cloud strategy and cloud transformation initiatives, being very familiar with IoT, depending like the Internet of Things, depending on what industry you're in, if you're in manufacturing or even healthcare. So just knowing where is data collected, how is it collected, where does it get stored, how is it processed, how do we use it? Those types of things are important, understanding that supply chain of data. So that's number one. It's the first topic we cover, not because it's most important, but just because it's kind of one of those fundamentals of speaking the language. Number two is aligning data with organizational strategy. So this is where it gets kind of tough for folks who have a technical background, is being able to speak the executive lingo. You're going to have to make a lot of friends with a lot of different people across your organization. If you talk to any of the really highly skilled CDOs out there who are very successful, they spend most of their time building their relationships with different stakeholders across the company. And there's a reason for that. I heard one in particular who said that for the first 3 months, she didn't speak up in a meeting once. She just scheduled one-on-ones with as many individuals and stakeholders as she possibly could, and she just had her listening ears on, and she just didn't say anything. She just had them talk about what they do and the biggest problems they're facing and how she could be helpful potentially. And so just building those relationships and understanding the acumen. If you're going to be a CDO in insurance, or if you're going to be a CDO in manufacturing or automotive, you do need to speak the language. It is a respect thing inside of enterprises. And so we talk a lot about acquiring business acumen. How do you learn those different things? And I've seen tons of CDOs who bounce between industries as well. You can go from automotive to financial services to retail, and you just need to figure out how to pick up on the lingo and understand how to get up to speed on the strategic elements of the organization. So strategic thinking, I know it sounds very broad, but it is a key component of being successful. Aligning data strategy with business objectives. Again, if you don't have those good relationships with different stakeholders across the company, you're never going to be able to understand what their objectives are, and you're never going to be able to align all of your initiatives with their objectives. At the end of the day, most CDOs are seen as a cost center, right? Like most data offices are seen as a cost center. And you have to be able to align yourself with value being delivered to the business, or they will cut your budget all day long, and eventually they may even get rid of you. And that's the hard part, honestly, is really aligning all of the different initiatives you're doing as a CDO to what's most important to the company and actually delivering value. And then identifying those top opportunities and, again, driving business value. We talked about that. Navigating the organizational structure. I feel like that's a job in and of itself. Understand how to do that really well. Get introductions to other people, ask who else you should meet with, start to map that out, and understand how to navigate it well. Know who to go to in legal, know who to go to in security, in the security teams, know who to go to for risk and risk management. You need to understand how to navigate quickly because you're covering so many different domains and areas inside of a company. You're literally touching every single function of a company in some cases. And so you need to know who you can leverage to give you information and help you and support you and be a champion of what you're doing. Budgets and ROI, very not straightforward thing to establish, but we do give a template as a part of the masterclass that you can go through and actually create ROI justifications for different initiatives, put together budgets, or tweak or modify your existing budget or ROI, business cases that you're putting together for different initiatives, because funding is important. We have to be able to get budget and funding to do what we want to do. And it is one of the top 3 complaints I hear from CDOs is we don't have enough budget, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough funding to do what I want to do. And you never will, right? You're always going to want more funding and more dollars to get what you need to get done. But the reality is you're going to have to piecemeal and you're going to have to show value along the way. And then you can justify getting some more money. And then data monetization is another piece we touch on, which is the ability to monetize your data. That can mean a lot of different things. It's a loaded term. Some people interpret that as how do we monetize it from a value perspective inside of the company? Other people might say, how do we monetize this externally and maybe put this type of data in a data marketplace and actually monetize it that way? There's a lot of data that gets purchased because it creates tons of value. And so thinking about how do you package data to create value? And how do you actually make data a key value asset of the organization? Lots of tech native companies have done this very, very well, obviously. So those are the first 2 topics. The third topic is becoming an organizational change agent and driving culture. If any of you have heard data-driven culture or data-informed decision-making or data-driven decision-making, these are big words that basically mean how do we get our company to actually use the data? So there's a lot of digital transformation that has happened over the last decade plus, and we have to understand how data is impacted by that. So, when we think about that, it's like what existing digital transformations are in place or in flight that we can leverage in order to get better data or in order to extract more data out of what we're doing. Becoming a change agent is essentially being the person that drives change. It's an exhausting role because you have to bring the energy every day. You have to get people motivated. You've got to get people aligned and moving in the right direction. It's a very, very exhausting role. And you have to know how to get people to change and how to motivate them. And that's why I said you need a lot of EQ for a role like this, because if you think about it, what kind of change is necessary with data? So number one, when we're doing data quality initiatives or improvement initiatives, we may be working with a bank teller, or we may be working with our customer service team or customer service reps, and we may be having to train them on the importance of data quality when they're entering information, or when we're reconfiguring the screens that they're using, or when we're capturing different information from the system. And so that is not part of their day-to-day role. They don't really think about that. They just know that they need to enter information into a field. They're not really thinking about how that data is being used. That's part of this change, is like, how do we get hundreds or thousands of people inside of a company to think about data differently, especially when they're not incentivized to. You may have domain experts, like maybe managers inside of your customer service department, that understand the nuance of all the process, and you may need to extract some of that domain knowledge from them to give context to data that's being collected. Again, not part of their job. Their job is to run the data service department. And so how do we motivate them and encourage them from a change lens to essentially get them to participate in helping define different data fields or define the business process that's collecting data? And then you have folks like analysts who are using data to inform decisions, or business stakeholders who need to use data to inform their decisions. How do we change their behaviors and say, go look for this dashboard, go find this insight, tweak the dashboards this way or use this new AI tool. Those are the adoption pieces that if those aren't done, we don't actually get to the value. So the change agent piece is very comprehensive and really hard. I'd say also communicating with other executives, I mentioned, is its own lingo in and of itself. But the important part to that is to understand how they speak and understand what's important to them and understand what to say and when. When you get higher up in leadership roles, the language changes, right? You've got executives who have to think more broadly and holistically about a lot of different things versus maybe an individual contributor who's very focused on one particular, very specific task and getting the execution level details of that task done. So the way you speak to people who are a lot more in the detail is going to be much different than the way you speak to executives inside of a company. And if you come from a technical background, which I do, by the way, so I also had to overcome this as well. You go from, coding and deploying code for very specific tasks to talking to executives all the time. It is totally different language, and the way that you communicate is different. So you got to learn how to do that. And part of that is through observation, the other is through trial and error, and the other could be through mentorship. And that's part of what we try to do during these sessions as well. The data-driven culture, I talked about leading with empathy. This is one of Salima's biggest points throughout the entire masterclass is how do we lead with empathy? Being the technical person that corrects people all the time because you're right and they're wrong is not a great way to get people to care about what you're doing. And so if you've got more empathy for their position or why they're making certain decisions, or maybe why they're defensive on certain things or don't want to share certain information with you potentially, it can help you overcome a lot of those hurdles. Also, Salima talks about this all the time, but she has an incredible track record of the lack of attrition on her teams. So great retention numbers on people who go to work for her and help support her on all of these initiatives, people who will follow her to different organizations to work for her. And it's because she has a lot of empathy and she's an empathetic leader and she's thought really deeply about her leadership role and what that looks like. So leading with empathy is something we talk about a lot and how to do that. Driving operational change, again, if these things don't actually make a business change, you're going to have a really hard time justifying your existence as a CDO, unfortunately. And the importance of data literacy and upskilling the workforce. Again, if you look at a lot of these tech native companies, they hire a lot of folks who are, technically savvy. And so they don't necessarily need to learn that AI is going to help them in their job. They just are naturally curious and start using AI tools, and then that's it. But when you work at organizations that might be a lot bigger, or maybe they've been around for a really long time, they may not have individuals who are used to that kind of work environment or used to using tools like that at all. So we got to think about, again, back to the empathy, how do we empathize with the current situation? And how do we encourage folks to get curious, be interested in what we're doing, and get them kind of upskilled and cross-skilled into the data ecosystem whenever necessary. These literacy programs are really, really, really hard to stand up. One other thing that we do throughout this masterclass is we actually give you tons of resources and links to different things like ROI calculators and resources for standing up and creating and designing a data literacy program. So if you do join, you get access to all of those resources as well. Topic 4 is building your team. So people management, having a diverse cross-functional team. Like I said, this is a very, very cross-functional type of group or type of organization inside of an enterprise or inside of a company. And having diverse individuals across different skill sets is really important. To have like all of the same kinds of people thinking about the problem, you're just going to get stuck in one way of solving it. And so building diverse cross-functional teams is super important. Sometimes you'll even steal people from the business side who are really savvy in their particular area and kind of use them and leverage them to help you build out that data domain a little bit more and maybe do some of the analytics behind it and maybe cross-skill and upskill them into building dashboards or helping with AI systems. That's pretty common as well, or the embedded structure where you actually have, some of your folks embedded in different parts of the business to get really familiarized with how that part of the business works. So that's the hybrid operating models. Like, how do we actually set up an operating model, like a hub and spoke model, for example, or a fully embedded model, or a hybrid model? What does that look like? How do you set that up? How do you suggest that? The organizational structure, where everyone sits, who they report to, pods of people with different types of skill sets to solve problems quickly. Those are all things that we talk about as well. Driving stakeholder engagement. We touched on that a little bit, but we really drive into the details of that in topic 4. And then finally, hiring strategy and building the right culture. I don't know about any of you, but there are lots of toxic technical cultures out there. And so you want to avoid building something like that. And so we talk about, how do you hire? What do you ask about? What do you look for? Where do you find candidates? Obviously, our community is a really big place that a lot of, companies will try to hire candidates from. So we talk about getting embedded into different communities to be able to access talent and get first dibs on really good talent. Also recognizing potential in candidates instead of, just screening for the typical things on a resume, giving people an opportunity to learn on the job and providing a learning culture inside of your organization is important. There's a difference between hiring individual contributors versus, directors or managers or leadership within your org. And so we talk a lot about that as well. So these topics are very comprehensive. Just want to give some more information about the structure of the masterclass. So, and I did get one question. So one of the key points is knowing a general overview of technical aspects, but will masterclass go over what technical skills you should know inside and out as a CDO? We do cover it at a high level. We definitely don't teach the technical elements within this masterclass, or it would be a very, very long masterclass. So we would definitely highlight different skills, technical skills or concepts that you should know. And then if you feel like you don't understand some of those, you should go and do research on your own. We can always talk about resources to support that too. Now, this is an abbreviated masterclass. It's obviously a lot to cover, but it is abbreviated for a reason. We wanted to make it easy to get through. There's a lot of CDO certifications and curriculum out there. They're very expensive. They are pretty detailed, and they're a lot of time and energy. And I think for us, especially for Salima, she wanted to make this very accessible to individuals. So let's give you the scaffolding that to then go and dive deeper in different domains and give you the knowledge and kind of the structure and the way of thinking about it. And then, we've got 2 different formats. Historically, we've done live sessions. So we've done cohorts of, very small groups, no more than 10. And it is an application process. So you do have to apply and get accepted to take the masterclass. And the way that we've structured it before is that it's 8 live sessions. There is homework in between them. It's over the course of 8 weeks. It is, once a week we have an hour-and-a-half long session. Session 1, 3, 5, and 7 are informational sessions. We share experiences with each other. It's a time for you to ask Salima questions. She goes through the topics in detail. And then sessions 2, 4, 6, and 8 are all interviews and sessions with actual CDOs out there. And they typically cover the topic that was covered in the session before. So we try to strategically pick a chief data officer who is very, has deep knowledge in that particular area or has demonstrated success in that area. This is an opportunity. So like Salima and I will kind of interview them and ask them questions to kick it off. And then it's an opportunity for the individuals in the cohort to actually ask questions to the CDO. We find that the kind of most successful people in our cohorts come with questions. They come with tons of questions. They take advantage of the opportunity, and they actually engage a lot with the CDOs that we bring in. You know, it's important to realize that your network is everything. You know, you want to be able to connect with different leaders and have them in your network. And so we wanted the ability to do that, is to bring different leaders in, give you access to them, give you the ability to chat with them and connect with them. So those sessions are basically that one on 10 time that you get access to them. So that's the kind of first format, which is more in depth. Again, that's application based. Something Salima and I are actually going to do is make this self-paced. So it doesn't provide that live interactivity with those CDOs. We might be able to come up with something interesting so you can still access that network, but it would be much cheaper, you know, definitely less than half of the other sessions. So to participate in the live session masterclass, again, you have to be approved. You have to apply and be approved, and it's $2,000 per person. If you're a paid member of our community, you get 50% off of that. For the self-paced, it will be cheaper than that. So it will make it more accessible to a ton of people. But again, you kind of lose that live interactivity with the different CDOs, but you can still access and ask questions to Salima asynchronously and engage with her that way. So that's not published yet, but we are doing that in the new year. We wanted to provide an option that created kind of more accessibility for folks for this curriculum. Obviously, it's quite hard to get access to that many CDOs for that many people, and we wanted to keep the live cohorts pretty intimate so that there was an opportunity to really connect with each other and with the different leaders we were bringing in. So if you are interested, I know Lauren dropped a link. It's a lot of really good stuff in there. Honestly, every time I listen to Salima speak, I learn something new, or I'm reminded of something important that I might have forgotten. And it's a really, really good opportunity to sharpen those skills and start planning out your career if this is a path you want to go down. And even if it's not, you still get a really good perspective of what a CDO goes through and thinks about. And yeah, I think it's a great lens to have. So if you do decide, hey, I want to be technical, I don't want to deal with all of the shenanigans of being a CDO, at least you have some empathy for their role, you know how to engage with them, that kind of thing. So I do think it's an important class to take. I did want to end with just showing, you know, Salima's background real quick, talking a little bit more about her, because really this whole masterclass was inspired by her, and the topics that she saw were being covered in a lot of other curriculum that we came across. So 21 years, 5th generation CDAO. She's been the first at several organizations that you can see below. She is the founder and CEO, chief executive at an organization that she founded called CDO Today. It's a think tank for CDOs by CDOs. So she also saw kind of a lack in the community of CDOs where it wasn't so vendor heavy, because obviously lots of vendors want to get in front of a chief data officer. So she decided to create her own community. She also just recently announced a new initiative called IntelliCon, which is a series of live events for executives across, I think, the US and the globe, in different countries as well. They announced a strategic partnership with Microsoft. So they're going to be hosting these kind of think tank live events across the world in partnership with Microsoft. It's super cool. The concept kind of was born out of another event that her and I have been to several times, and it's pretty incredible. Like I said, she's a mentor and strategic advisor for a ton of different CDOs and companies, including my company, AlignAI. She's just an incredible individual. She's a board member, and she also founded Compassion's Way. It's one of her passion projects and initiatives that helps people who don't have homes get resources. So A little bit about her. Obviously, she's a very empathetic individual, full of empathy, just an incredible person to know. So please connect with her if you haven't already. Check out CDO today, check out IntelliCon as well. And, please take a look at the link in the chat if you are interested in participating. And with that, Lauren, I will hand it over to you to close us out.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rehgan. So like all of our webinars, this is being recorded and will be uploaded on our community platform. If you signed up, I believe you'll get access to the recording. As always, if you have any questions, please send us an email, follow us on social media, on our community platform. We have so many more webinars and events just as educational and as wonderfully informative as this series has been. So make sure you stay in the loop. And thank you so much. I hope everyone has a very happy holidays.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining.